thank you everyone for joining. My name is Joe Follick. I'm the Director of Communications and Marketing at Veterans Florida. And our entrepreneurship program is it's great, due largely to our local partners around the state. And I'm going to have a few fun facts through this, but here's one. The sources vary, but veterans are about 6 or 7% of the general population, but they own or partially own 14% of small businesses. So that indicates what I think we all know in our experience is that veterans are uniquely positioned to own their own business. And thankfully, we got a very good support network for them here in Florida. Before we get to the questions and answers, I want to turn it over and introduce Derek Frazier. Derek is our Entrepreneurship Program Manager here at Veterans Florida. Just wanted to have a chance to introduce himself to everybody. Derek.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Derek Frazier. I am the Veterans Florida Entrepreneurship Program Manager. It is an honor to be here today, and it's great to have all you guys in attendance. I'm here to try to get some good training on this webinar along with everybody else and intake all this information and look forward to assisting wherever I can.
Thank you, Derek. We're in good hands with Derek. Since we started our Veterans Florida Entrepreneurship Program, more than 5,000 veterans and spouses have participated in the program, and that's pretty amazing. It's really great, and there's a lot of success stories among them, and hopefully we can help some folks create their own success stories moving forward. I'm going to do a quick introduction of our panelists today. We got Mason Alford. He's the Director of the Office of Small Business Innovation for Florida Department of Commerce. Thank you for joining us, Mason. We have Ron Bender. He's a Vice Chair for VetFran. VetFran is a national organization that helps veterans identify opportunities for franchises and can guide them along that path. Thank you, Ron. And we got Dr. Kevin Cox. Dr. Cox is the Director of the Adams Center for Entrepreneurship at Florida Atlantic University, and he's also, he's one of our longest serving partners in the Veterans Florida program. So thank you, Dr. Cox, for being here, and thanks for all you do to help veterans. And last but by no means least, we've got Robert Kirila here. He's the Managing Director of Black Powder Partners. They are an investor in businesses, and they sort elite veteran talent to lead those businesses. Rob is an Army vet, and he's also a Veterans Florida board member. So thank you for your service, Rob, and thanks for joining us today. So I want to start with you, Kevin. You've got a good macro overview of the program. What's your general advice for aspiring entrepreneurs? And is that advice a little different for veterans? Do you modify it with veterans?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. And I guess my first piece of advice is to tap into the resources that are available. And I would give anybody that advice. Resources available online like this webinar, but also locally, right? Really getting local, identifying free and discounted, high quality though, resources like some of the programs from Veterans Florida, but not just that, right? Local accelerators, local incubators, local universities, startup programs, business owner programs, other entities that are in your community. Your results will vary. It may be the Chamber of Commerce, it may be the SBDC. Some of those are more effective and some of them are less. Results can vary a little bit. Some of them are phenomenal. So, finding those resources, and then specific to veterans, right? You have something that's uniquely valuable and available to you, and that is other business owners, right, that are veterans. So I'd encourage you to get connected to them, even if they're in a different industry, especially if you're just getting started, right? Some of the first steps for starting a business are the same, whether it's a service, a software, a product. Their mentorship and advice can really go a long way, and you naturally have that veteran connection, whereas many entrepreneurs don't necessarily have that clear connection. So I've witnessed that it can be a little bit easier to find a successful business owner and say, hey, I'd love to buy you a coffee and learn from you, and maybe you can establish some sort of mentorship or coaching or even partnership. You never really know.
That's great, Kevin. Two things popped to mind. It can be bewildering. There's a lot of options out there for veterans or anyone who wants to start their own business or grow their own business. And that's why Veterans Florida is here. If you contact us directly, you can contact Derek. I'll give you his email here at the end. We can help you navigate and get that start with trusted partners around the state. So yes, Kevin, thank you for that. And that's kind of a good segue to Ron. Ron, tell us a bit about what VetFran does and why veterans and franchises can be a great fit for each other.
Sure. Thank you very much, Joe. First of all, VetFran is a nonprofit organization that's just designed to educate veterans and military spouses on the opportunities they might find in franchising. Mostly that's for franchise ownership, but also for employment opportunities in franchising. So the reasons that veterans are such a great fit and that franchisors absolutely love having veterans as franchise owners is that all the skills developed in serving in our armed forces, all the leadership, all the operations, all the logistics, all those skill sets are absolutely fantastically transferable to business ownership, and especially in franchising, because franchises are very systems related, right? Every military veteran has learned how to operate inside a system. They've learned how to get that mission accomplished, even though they never had all the resources that they could want. And business is absolutely just the same.
And people who are offering franchises, are veterans kind of a first choice for them?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, one of the things that we as franchisors look for in candidates is this person going to learn and follow our system? And then are they going to train their team to follow that system? And believe it or not, are they interested in serving their community and giving back? All those things are really great earmarks of veterans.
Yep. Thank you, Ron. I appreciate that. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about franchises later on here, but I want to turn it over to Robert now. Another opportunity for veterans comes with running an existing business. Robert, can you tell us a little bit about what Black Powder does and what's available for veterans in your worldview and your workview?
Sure, Joe. I thought Kevin's comments were really interesting, and I think that what I will share is complementary to what he shared. In other words, the other side of the coin. Black Powder Partners is a private equity firm that uses funds from our limited partners to acquire businesses, and then we put our operating partners in charge of those businesses, and we ask them to triple the company in 7 years. That's our sort of strategy, and we are specifically wanting to do that in tax-friendly locations throughout the Southeast, which is where most military guys either started up or ended up. And so it's a great fit in the state of Florida, but also the Carolinas and Georgia and Texas and all those sorts of places. What I would say is, so Kevin, I think, mentioned a lot of the resources that are available through the government in one form or another. Government funded programs, state government, municipal, academic funded programs with a government sort of sponsor. And even, I think he mentioned that there are some non-governmentals, but I think there's probably governmental funding there. And that's all great. But that's not the pool that we swim in. We swim in private resources. And that could be, again, very similar to what he said, though. That's access to funding. That's access to expertise. And that's access to partners or subject matter experts that can help you along the way. And so, when we think about what we do, we like to go fast. We like to have minimal sort of guidance and maximum flexibility to achieve outcomes. And what we rely on, the secret in our business is that we rely specifically on veterans, a specific segment within the veteran population who have, sort of been out for 3 to 5 years, have worked in the private sector and understand ideas like marketing and sales, and that there is a difference. And, things like managing cash flow, managing a broader P&L, understanding how to generate margin through operations. Those are the sort of skills that we are looking for within our operating partners, because we're going to drop them into an ongoing concern that's already profitable and say, hey, here's the keys to this great little car. You got to triple its production, ready, go. And we think that they can do that, but for the same reasons that Ron sort of mentioned. They have a capacity to deal with complex projects from start to finish. They have some leadership skills, i.e. they can work with customers, they can work with employees, they can work with vendors and come to agreements that they can, be accountable for. And then finally, we feel like these guys, in many cases, contrary to the sort of popular narrative, have good interpersonal skills. And they can thread the needle between talking to a laborer who's working at the, sort of baseline of a project all the way up through the banking executives who are funding the project. That's who we look for. I like to tell our investors, they are Pegasus unicorns, but we can find a whole bunch of them and they can't. And that's what gives us our advantage.
That's excellent info. And I think this is a world that maybe a lot of veterans aren't aware of. So thank you. Thank you, sir, for sharing that. We're going to go to our fourth panelist, and it's Mason. One common thread that I think I've heard with everyone so far is how Florida, or you can just tell by having this webinar and who's talking, Florida really is the best place in the nation, I think, for veterans or anyone to start their own business, but specifically veterans. And Rob, you talked about government support. The Florida Department of Commerce has a number of programs that can help veterans starting their business. And I think one of them is the State Small Business Credit Initiative. Of course, we got an acronym that in Tallahassee, the FCI. So Mason, can you demystify that for us and talk about how that can help veterans?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Joe. And again, appreciate you having me on and the opportunity to speak about the programs. I think Robert made a good point, right? It's not just government programs that are available. It's the private sector that's doing this as well, right? And I certainly agree with you that Florida is the best state in the nation for veterans. But not only that, active duty military, transitioning service members, their families, as well as Gold Star families. And we've got robust state programs and initiatives that Florida sets the standard for the nation on serving this population, right? One of the ways that we do that here at FloridaCommerce is through the State Small Business Credit Initiative. And that is a federal program that's administered at the state level, in which we've received over $488.5 million, right? And so those funds, which some of those are set aside specifically, right, for our veteran entrepreneurs and small businesses, can support all types of businesses, right? Whether you're a sole proprietor looking to start a landscaping business, right? Whether or not you're going to get a hold of Ron and you need help opening a franchise, right? We can assist you all the way up to a small business that employs 750 or fewer employees, right? In this program, again, we work alongside private financial institutions of all shapes and sizes. Your big regional or national financial and depository institutions, down to your small, local or regional community bank. And what we do is we work closely with them so that they're able to originate either a good loan to a veteran entrepreneur by offsetting the risk that they have or providing some sort of credit enhancement that you need. But it doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? There are other resource partners that, as Robert mentioned and Kevin kind of mentioned, right? Access to capital is one thing, right? It's about the business management training, the technical assistance that you need. That's all part of that capital access component, whether that's private equity, venture capital, or a traditional loan product. And here at FloridaCommerce, we are committed to ensuring that your small business grows and thrives here in the state of Florida.
Mason, would you consider this program a hidden gem? Do you get a lot of interest in it? And maybe some parameters on how folks could get started with this.
Yeah, it is a bit of a hidden gem, and it's a bit complex, right? Loans are not originated by FloridaCommerce. They're originated by third-party private financial institutions. We have information available on our website, floridajobs.org/Florida SSBCI. That will give you information about frequently asked questions, where participating lenders are in your area. We also work very closely, as Kevin mentioned, with the Small Business Development Center Network. Mm-hmm. They're located throughout the state of Florida. They know of the participating lenders as well. But if you have questions, if you need some additional information, don't hesitate to reach out to SSBCI, State Small Business Credit Initiative, SSBCI, at commerce.fl.gov. And we'll be sure that you've got access to the information you need around SSBCI, so you're able to get that capital you need to, again, grow and expand your business here in the state of Florida.
Thank you, Mason. Really appreciate you sharing that. I think we can help a lot of folks. And as we go through the call, I think a lot of people may have questions, they may have notes, they may want to talk to someone after. I'm going to offer us up as you can email us and we will get you to the right people to answer any questions you have. I'll give you the email now and then I'll keep giving it to you, but it's Derek Frazier's email. It's his last name, FRASER at veteransflorida.org. And I'll repeat that a couple times later because it might be, you might have a number of things that come out of this meeting and it might involve different sectors. If you email us, we'll get you in touch with the right people and we'll share, like I said, we'll share that email more after that. So I'm going to ask our panelists one more round of questions. If you're viewing and you have some questions, please put them in the chat and we can get to you later on here. Kevin, I'm going to come back to you. You know, you serve everyone who's looking to start a business, not just veterans. But can you tell me a little bit more about how veterans bring a different perspective to the training?
Yeah, absolutely. And I really think Ron and Robert have sort of already alluded to this, but Joe's right. I work with scientists, inventors, students. They're interesting. They have a tendency to be a little bit all over the place, and they aren't always known for consistently executing. And I have kind of the absolute opposite experience with the veterans. They have an overwhelming tendency to effectively execute. They do. They get the job done. Which is phenomenal. That's why it's my favorite audience to work with, honestly. But there is sort of a downside to that coin, right? If you go the very traditional kind of startup route, there's resources, there's programming, there's support like we offer here, but sometimes there's a little bit of a no roadmap situation. All right, so I think it's great that during this seminar we have some alternatives than the more traditional kind of startup new venture route. Franchise, it's a complete system, right? Or what Robert's mentioned, dropping somebody into a business and just being able to execute and grow, ideally, right? Is very different than starting from scratch. That can be difficult for some veterans because they have that immense willingness and ability to execute, but it can be hard to figure out exactly where and what to do with that no roadmap, no structure, no infrastructure scenario. And again, we're here to help them kind of find that path, and some of them absolutely do it highly successfully. But those are kind of the upside and also the downside, typical within that population.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. A brief anecdote for me. We talked with a veteran who went through Kevin's program down there at FAU, and they said they were reluctant to reach out to Kevin at first because they weren't sure they were going to get, you know, they were surprised, I think, that they had access to all these resources, right? So I think, again, that is one of the big reasons we are doing the webinar, why we do what we do. And he is now about to launch his own business. And it's been a great journey for him. And I think we're going to talk about that in a blog later this week at veteransflorida.org. So keep an eye out for that. Robert, I want to come back to you. You were in for 26 years. You had a deep, wide set of experiences. But in your current job and when you came back and in your work for Veterans Florida, there can be misperceptions in the civilian world about veterans and what they bring to a civilian world, whether starting your own business or whether you're looking for a job. Can you talk a little bit about those misperceptions you've encountered and maybe something that vets and their spouses could prepare for as they start entering the entrepreneur world?
So it's a nuanced question. And I think that it depends on who the audience is, But if I were to speak in broad terms, I will fall back on my 4 years where I was running the SOTF, and we placed over 500 veterans into talent appropriate positions. And I'm kind of stomping my foot there because there is this narrative that really has sort of lingered and won't fully let go, that goes back to the 80s. And so, if you need a truck driver, well, you can go get an Army guy because he'll show up on time. Sort of uninformed perspective. As we know, I think everyone on the call knows that over time, over the last 50 years, the percentage of American citizens who've actually served in the Department of Defense has gone down every single year. And that is reflected out in the private sector. And so what is important, what has been really important for us to do is to prepare our veterans to be successful. And that means that they have the vocabulary, that they have the understanding of how to professionally network, how to professionally correspond, how to interact with people, and who are the right people to interact with. I'll go back to a note that I have a daughter who's just entered the workforce, and she reflected the same sort of tendencies that I think some of our veterans. And she said, I can remember she said to me at one point, I probably filled in 100 online applications and I've never heard a response from one of them. And I said, okay, hold your hand out. I'm going to hit it with a hammer, and let's see how long you hold your hand in there, right? So stop doing what doesn't work, okay? Don't do that. That is not the way that business works. That is not the way that you're going to find access to opportunities that are commensurate with your talents and your skills. At the end of the day, it all comes back to people, people, people. And your ability to meet people and make connections and engender a relationship with them that's beyond transactional, right? The idea of going to networking events so that you can get something, I don't find to be successful. But if you can go to any event there is, and it could be going to get breakfast at your local place, it could be going to church, it could be participating in a fundraiser. If you are able to be of value to someone else, I have been absolutely shocked over and over and over again by the amount of generosity that exists outside of the military, and guys that will say, hey, look, I don't have anything, but I really like you, Joe. Let's get together and have another discussion. And then let me share some of my resources. Going back to Kevin, let me share some of my resources. And those, in that case, it wouldn't be necessarily access to a government program that comes with a check, but it might be access to a bank president who is actively looking to make business loans and doesn't know where to find customers. And you can make that, you can put that together where it's a win-win for all parties. And the guy that's putting that together also wins because he made that happen. That's what I think that if we can share that idea with our veterans, and they can sort of put that jacket on and understand, that is the new environment they're in, I think they can be really successful.
Thanks, Rob. There's, while you were talking, I think you talked about the importance of meeting people. And we, me and some of our team were fortunate to go to a Florida SBDC event a couple months ago. And I've never seen a group of people so warm and so eager to not just find opportunities for themselves, but to share their stories and to share their network, too. Like, I think, there is that level of camaraderie in the military. That level of camaraderie in the entrepreneurship world is very powerful as well, because people want to help each other. It's really a welcoming place. And yes, and that's why I would encourage you to contact us and we can get you the right people. We just put Derek's email there in the chat. So if you ever, at the end of this, like I said, you can reach out to us. Rob, that was great. Thank you. Ron, there are specific resources I think that you have for veterans seeking to own a business. What are those specific resources that you have for veterans getting into the franchise world?
Oh, great question. The VetFran website, which is vetfran.org, has a specific subset for veterans. And on that veterans subset, there's a tremendous amount of click here to learn and all sorts of videos and downloadable PDFs that can teach about opportunities in franchising, how to select a franchise, how to get funding for it, all the different aspects of learning enough to decide if indeed franchising is right for you, and then choosing the right franchise and getting into it. And also, we have a huge list of our corporate supporters who are offering discounts and special incentives for veterans. There are everything from discounted loans, discounted services for a franchise or even a small business, discounted actual franchises. There are some brands that discount just huge amounts specifically to veterans, because veterans become much better operators. And we also do free presentations. We call them Franchising 101, which is all about how to learn about the aspects of franchising, whether you're right for business ownership or franchise ownership, and then how to go about finding the right resources to do it. So again, it's all about guiding and educating so that veterans and their spouses can make the best decisions.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I didn't know some of those things. That's really helpful. I appreciate you sharing it. Yeah, it's neat to know that there's specific opportunities to help veterans. Well, there's an organization, VetFran,
There you go.
Devoted to helping veterans get into this. Mason, going to come back to you. I believe the Florida Department of Commerce also has a few resources that are strictly for veterans. Can you, veterans and spouses, let's make sure we're clear here. When I said veterans on this call, I mean veterans and spouses. And so I mentioned spouses a lot. They are, we all know what it's like to be a veteran spouse, and they support the other person throughout their time in, and they deserve access to the same resources that the veterans themselves have. So Mason, going back to you again, tell me about some of the specific things that the Florida Department of Commerce might have for vets.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's not just the veterans; it's also their families and their spouses that we love to support. One of the programs in particular that I'm thinking about that Florida Commerce has is called the Jobs for Veterans State Grant. Okay. And what this does is this program prepares veterans, transitioning service members, as well as eligible spouses for meaningful careers. The Florida Department of Commerce, we partner with Career Source Florida. Again, they're local workforce boards all throughout the state. So we partner with them to offer eligible individuals, again, whether that's a veteran, transitioning service member, or spouse, employment services delivered through case management framework with a very lens towards getting them into careers that are going to complement the skill sets that they've learned in active duty or otherwise. And so we also utilize the Skill Bridge program here at Florida Commerce. That's a DoD program, which again helps locate service members to positions that are going to further advance their career. Coming up here in October, we also have the 2024 Florida Veterans Workforce Summit that will be in Orlando. And that's going to bring together state workforce partners, businesses, industry professionals, really to equip veterans and their spouses with the tools that best serve the veteran population. I'd encourage you to check that out. In addition to sort of those programs, we have a state veteran program coordinator here at Florida Commerce. Again, if you want to reach out to Joe or myself, we can make sure that you're put in touch with the appropriate party. If again, if you're a veteran small business owner, okay, whether or not you're in the defense space or not, FloridaCommerce has the Florida Aerospace and Defense Portal. Okay, so it says aerospace and defense, kind of, thinking Lockheed Martin, things like that. But really, this is to further strengthen Florida's defense industry supply chain by connecting Florida's small and medium-sized businesses with employer resources, as well as contracting opportunities that directly support Florida's military community, right? So whether or not, it's MacDill Air Force, they've got a $400,000 contract to someone, for someone to come and cut their lawn, right? There's all these opportunities out there. In addition to that, there's free cybersecurity training and assessment. It helps you locate no-cost consulting with either the Small Business Development Center Network or Apex Accelerator, which can again help you kick up some additional revenue streams. Top of mind for me, because I'm located in Tallahassee, right? It also has some disaster preparedness information. So again, I'd encourage you to check out all three of those. And for those small business owners that are in the path of Tropical Storm 9, proposed Storm Helene, again, be prepared. But following disasters, we do have small business emergency loans available that's activated through executive order by the governor. So again, keep your eyes out on things that are occurring. And if your business does end up ultimately being impacted by this storm, FloridaCommerce does have some resources available to assist.
So I'm glad you mentioned that, Mason. For everyone who is watching, we are going to be updating our own resources page on Veterans Florida, specifically services that are available to veterans and their families here in Florida after a disaster. And I hope people don't need it later this week, but we got to be prepared. So if you check out our website, we'll have it updated today to represent the unique needs that Hurricane Helene might be bringing to us. And I also want to, I've said a couple times, reach out to Derek Frazier and his emails in the chat. I want to make something clear. We serve veterans and their spouses at no cost. We are created by the state to make sure that veterans and spouses can experience what we think is the best state in the nation to live, work, and live. So if there's any, I know there's some for-profit folks out there that might try to reach out to veterans, but I can promise you we can provide best of class service to you, and it will be at no charge as well. Going to do one more round of questions, but if you're watching or viewing and you do have any questions you want to ask, please drop it in there, and we can get to them. I was going to go, I think one of the sayings in my part of the world is facts tell, but stories sell. And I was going to ask each of you to talk a little bit about maybe one person, one situation, an anecdote that can show the value of the services provided and persistence from vets that, stuck at it. And given Dr. Cox a couple seconds to think about this question. So I'll start with him, Dr. Cox.
Oh, it won't take me long. I'll talk about a great friend of Veterans Florida, a big promoter of all our programs that I was lucky enough to have in the program back in 2020, and that'd be Steve Edwards, the founder of Premier Virtual. He joined up the program in late February of 2020. You might remember that time period as especially interesting. He had a job fair platform. He decided that job fairs could be virtual, and he had 7 people who had used it, 7 total customers ever. And I wasn't quite sure about it, but man, he was a great founder and really just an impressive guy, and I helped him as much as I could. And you might recall the old pesky COVID came around, and every job placement agency, state, entity, customer on the planet was looking for a electronic job fair platform, and he just happened to have started building one in 2019 and had it readily available, and from the Veterans Florida program, we got him into the New Venture Accelerator here at Florida Atlantic University called Tech Runway. He also participated in the 1909, which is a local accelerator program. And I mean, by the end of the year, he had over 17 states, over 10,000 users, and kind of the rest was history. And again, he's been a great promoter of the program and the resources. And I'm proud to say that he recently, about 3 months ago, had a successful exit. He sold Premier Virtual to another entity. He's still working with them and still growing it internally. But it's a great story. Certainly there were some coincidences in there, but we like to think we helped a little bit, and he really did a great job. So it's turned out to be a great story, and we're glad to have him as an alumni. He still comes to events. He still works with other founders and mentors. You mentioned Eric Joe. He's met with him many times. So it's just a great resource and a great story.
Yeah, you make your own luck. And while he didn't see COVID, he was working on this and it worked out for him, right? I think veterans are more likely to be persistent in their entrepreneurship goals. But it's another thing you said, Kevin, it's got me thinking. There's really the range of entrepreneur opportunities is almost limitless. It's as limitless as veterans and spouses and their dreams and goals. Like there's just not one particular field. It's the world's your oyster, kind of when you're starting your own business, and there are resources out there for that too. Ron, how about you? Any kind of particular vet-related success story you think that could let people know they can do it too?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Many business opportunities are expensive enough that they might be out of reach for many of the veterans that are looking to transition into ownership. But there's also a ton of opportunities that are much less expensive and that veterans can step into. They can use their TSP as well as loans and so forth. But I had a candidate who was actually down in Hollywood, Florida, and was a male service member who had retired about 2 years before, just really hadn't found satisfaction in the private sector. Really felt the loss of the sense of community that he had in the armed forces, and his wife was thankfully very supportive of his interest in becoming an entrepreneur. So he ended up buying a brand called, a specific franchise. It was a B2C service brand, and initially his wife stayed in her private sector job just to make sure that they had their family bills covered, everything was committed. But after about 8 months of phenomenal success, because he was a very hard worker and a great networker, a great personality. The business grew so much that he had added 2 additional territories. So now he had 3. And his wife stepped into the business to kind of take the admin side off his shoulders. And he was just out making those sales calls, meeting with referral partners, building the knowledge of the business in the local community, and just kicking butt. He was named franchisee of the year for his first year, and he's now in his 3rd year, and he's still growing and just doing great, and he's very happy.
There is a satisfaction for entrepreneurs, right? To be your own boss, to do this, it's hard work. It's really hard work, but boy, when you get it, just that sense of satisfaction of saying, I created this. Yes. Hey, Rob, gonna hit you up with the same question. You got any anecdotes you can share from your perspective?
Sure, Joe. The story that is the most powerful to me, and I hope for the folks that are listening in, really speaks to our origination story. And for the purposes of this forum, I'll try to keep it short. I was on a plane flying to Detroit, and a person that I had helped in the past. I'd love to say he was a friend, but we really had never met. I had helped him with a problem that he had asked me about. And so he said, hey, I want to introduce you to a guy. He'll be at the athletic club tonight. I want you to meet him. And he's got 2 things to tell you. And those 2 things are the important part of this discussion. But so I said, hey, well, tell me about this guy. And he said, no, I'm not going to tell you a thing. You just got to go meet him. And he told me his name, and that was it. So I went to the athletic club, and I walked in, and it was Christmas time. and they had this huge Christmas tree, and the concierge walked me around the tree, and there sat this elderly gentleman, like right out of a movie scene. This elderly gentleman sitting by the tree, probably having a bourbon or something and a cigar. I don't know, but that's how it struck me. And he said, Robert, sit down. I've got two things I need to tell you. I've been asked to do this. I want to do this. Okay, this is going back to my previous comments about people that want to help you. And so I said, okay, great. I'm happy to learn. And even if it's an ass chewing, I've had those before. So, I was in the Army for 26 years. I'm good at that too. And so I sat down, and he said, Robert, I was in the Army for 20 some years. I won a Silver Star there. I got a Purple Heart there. I fought in Vietnam. At the very end of my career, the Army made a mistake and asked me if I'd rather go to Wharton than the War College. And he said, so I went to Wharton. And what I quickly discovered was that I love business. I like the Army. I love business. And so he retired as soon as he could after that and went to work for GM. And they were looking for disadvantaged populations to come into their mid-level management program. And he said, I did that for a couple of years. And then one day, one of my suppliers came to me and said, hey, my wife and I are retiring and we're moving to the villages. You're going to have to get your widgets from someone else. And he said, well, you know what, sir, whoever bought your company, I'll just source them from them. And he said, I haven't been able to figure that piece out. I'm just putting a lock on the door, and we're leaving. And he said, wow, will you sell me your business? And the guy said, absolutely. I'd be thrilled. You've been good to me. I think you could do it. He said, great. I have no money. Okay, this is important. Keep this in mind. This is important. The guy then looked him dead in the face and said, the business will pay for itself. I will write the note. He said he brought two other mid-level managers out of GM to run this company. In 3 years, they'd paid the business off. Okay, they were 7 years ahead of schedule. They paid the business off in 3 years. He then said to those two, I will sell you 49% of the company if you want to, because they were not owners. It was just Joe. Joe was the man. He took on all the risk. So he said, I will sell 49% of the company to you two. You guys are going to be able to generate generational wealth for your family and run the company the way you have been. I'm going to take that cash and go buy another company. He paused then. He looked at me over his drink, whatever it was, and he said, Robert, that was 28 companies ago. I've never taken out a loan. Okay? The important part to understand, other than that first note, was he used cash flow from his businesses, and he kept going, and he kept hiring other of his people. And then I said, okay, that's an awesome story. What's your second point? And this is really important for your other people. He said, when you are talking with folks and they ask you what you're going to do next, Ron, this is good for your people too. He said, when they ask you what you're going to do next, they're not really worried about whether you're going home or going out to dinner. That's not the question they're asking you. They are asking you if they could partner with you in some financial or resource means in whatever you're doing next. In other words, they're willing to bet on you with resources. Okay, so when those veterans that are out there, you're meeting these people and you may not even know it, and then they ask you questions like that. I know nothing in your life circumstance prepares you to understand that question. It didn't for me either. And here's what he said to me as a sort of to underline this. He said, I have been told by many people that they have asked you what you're going to do next, and you missed the point of the question. So he said, I want you to go home tomorrow, and on the plane, I want you to see if you can remember every single person that has asked you what you're going to do next. And then I want you to reach out to them and tell them you understand the question now and that you would like to have another conversation about partnering with them. Okay. And for me, that conversation was worth literally millions of dollars, because I contacted those people and that became the financial foundation of our private equity firm. Okay. I'm not making this up. I'm not telling you secondhand. This is a firsthand experience of these great Americans that are out there and they want to participate. And it's not like, and again, no offense to my government folks, but I'm not asking them to go through 10 steps of a bureaucratic process. If this guy says he wants to do it and you come up with a good ask and he believes it, he writes you a check, over, done. So for guys like that are in franchises, when you say, hey, some of them are out of your range, don't forget, please, debt is one thing and it's expensive. And oftentimes you feel like you're asking Mother May I. Private capital is about building teams and partnerships with people that believe in you, and the numbers are way larger.
Thank you, Rob. There's a lot going on there. One of them is a continuance of our theme of this chat, which is you got to meet people. You got to get out there. You got to have an open mind. And, but you also got to meet people that you've met before sometimes, and to reach back out to them and say, you know what, now what they were saying makes more sense. So I appreciate that, Robert. But we are getting close to the end. I think we have a question or two. Elena, can you tell me what we have?
For Robert specifically, from Josh Yates in the call, we got prior to 2020 COVID, he had a SDVOSB, which is now closed, and doesn't have any intentions to repeat that path, but wants to meet professionals who assist in creating relationships who seek particular skill sets. And what is the first step in that?
Yeah. So what I would say, thank you, Elena. Clearly, I'm happy to share our contact information and we can follow up with a call. What I would say is that on a we have had some great success with our acquisition so far, which is not to say that I guarantee you we will always, but we have so far. But what we do have is we have what we call the bullpen, and we started a whole new company to manage our bullpen. And the bullpen is simply former veterans who have already been successful in the private sector who are looking for new opportunities. We call that Black Powder Search. So it's not Black Powder Holdings. It's a separate business entity. But essentially, we then go to other private equity firms that are always out there looking and trying to source operating partner talent, and we offer them the opportunity to be introduced to some of our folks. And so, if Josh would be so inclined, would love to have a conversation with him and see if our interests are aligned, as he moves forward and we do.
Thank you, Robert. I think I'm checking to make sure if we have any questions. Elena, do we have any more?
No.
Okay, that is great. Mason, before we go, I did want to give you the same shot we gave the other ones. Can you tell me a little kind of an anecdotal, inspirational story, if you might, for veterans that we can leave them on a fired up note here?
Yeah, certainly. It's glad I didn't have to directly follow Robert on that one. So, certainly here at FloridaCommerce, you get to see, again, just kind of the just the incredible things that veterans are doing across the state, right? Whether that, hypersonic jet testing out of Jacksonville, or augmented reality, helping, train the next generation of fighter pilots out of Orlando, or even again, helping veteran-owned businesses recover after a hurricane. There's a lot of different things that we get to support, but one in particular, again, there's a military and defense contractor out of Northwest Florida that came to us early on. They were a fledgling company, 10, 15 employees, needed a working capital line of credit to help them fulfill some contract orders, right? So they make things for all different types of parachutes and things like that for the good guys, right? The United States and our allies. And so the way government contracting works is it's cost reimbursement. So you get paid on the back end. But up front, you've got all of these costs, material, labor, the equipment, all of that. And so we're able to help them sort of get that initial loan. Maybe 2 years ago, I received a call about a month and a half ago that they've won a $70 million contract with one of our allies. They're hiring 40 more people. They're reevaluating their entire cash flow strategy so that they're able to kind of grow and expand with this demand. But, again, whether you're a sole proprietor, just getting that start, or you need a $20 million manufacturing facility, you've got, again, really dedicated professionals, whether that's at Veterans Florida, here at FloridaCommerce, or other resource partners that are really interested in your success here. So again, Joe, really appreciate your time and the panelists, and appreciate the invitation.
All right, well, that's great, Mason. I want to thank everybody. You can tell from this call, there's just an energy to support veterans and spouses in Florida in general. And we have the nation's strongest entrepreneurship program. We can get you into training, we get you into cohorts, get you with locally based experts, and we can help connect you to folks like Commerce and VetFran. So, we don't get a commission at Veterans Florida, but I do want to make sure you know that we're here for you, and it's no charge. So we're going to drop that email in there one more time, which is frazier@veteransflorida.org. And if you have any questions or follow-ups, he'll be glad to connect you with the right people. Guys, we could keep going. There's so much I enjoy about my job, but I really, really enjoy the support and energy that veteran and spouse entrepreneurs have in the state. So thank you for what you do to help veterans and their spouses pursue their dreams. And I think that's it for today, but the conversation continues. If anybody needs more information or has any questions, please reach out to us. And I want to remind everybody, be safe this week. We've got some unknowns coming ahead of us, so please be safe, and we will talk again soon. Thank you very much, guys.